Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. We will be starting off the day with some of our reporting that was due according to last year's budget bill around nursing homes, section E 306B. And really, this is in response to the several years of EFR, extraordinary financial relief, and really wanting to have a better understanding of that, of ownership of facilities, of process being used. So there were a bunch of questions that we asked in that the General Assembly asked the department to respond to. And rather than submitting a report, we said do a presentation. So we do like from time to time to, relieve people of submitting reports, especially on things that, are evolving in nature. So, so Commissioner Bowen is here. Welcome, Dr. Bowen.
So we did submit a report, two reports.
Going above and beyond.
Yeah, and we partnered with Diva and Jamie Mooney is here and she's gonna walk you through the reports and Angela and I are here to answer questions or to flesh out any areas where there's operational questions.
Okay, I must need to refresh or something because I don't see it.
I didn't see anything.
Nothing on the schedule.
Well, I didn't post anything for today.
Okay. All right, so why don't you walk us through what you've submitted? And we're just going to do a brief round of introductions because Jamie, I think this is the first time you've been before our committee. So I'm Teresa Wood. I'm from Waterbury, and I also serve Bolton, Buellscore, and Huntington.
Good morning, I'm Dan Noyes. I represent Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere.
Hi, good morning. Eric McGuire, I represent Rutland City.
Good morning, Doug Bishop, representing Colchester.
Morning, my name is Zon Eastis, representing Guilford and Vernon.
I'm Jubilee McGill, and I represent Bridgeport, Millbury, New Haven, and Weybridge.
Good morning, I'm Marie Garofano. I represent Essex and Essex Junction.
And
Lori Morse, Committee Assistant.
and we go right around the room.
Erica Wolfing, I work for NMR, we represent the HCA.
Jill Bowen, Commissioner Dale, nice to meet you, Jean.
Rebecca Silverlake, Assistant.
And Representative Cole.
Hey, Representative Cole of Hartford.
Great. Okay, Jamie, you have the floor. And I'm thinking committee members, we might be able to see this on the,
It's in our report section.
in our report.
Today.
Okay, thank you.
I just lost Wi-Fi for a second.
Okay. It's in our report section. So, Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Jamie Mooney. I'm the Director of the Division of Rate Setting at Department of Vermont Health Access. And would it be okay if I share the report right now as I walk through it so it's easier to understand?
Of course.
Okay, one second. Okay, is everyone able to see the report?
We can't see what you have on the screen. No, I mean, it's pretty small. If you can make it bigger. Are those just links that you're going to go to? There you go. Okay.
Yeah, so this is just the table of contents section to make it easier to go through the report, and we tied it out to each legislative section number in the
Okay.
yeah.
So members, it is under DIVA. Don't look under Dale. It's under DIVA in our reports section. Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
Yep. So the first tab that we have here is the nursing facility information. So this lists the 33 Medicaid participating nursing homes in Vermont. And we also included the 3 nursing homes that do not participate in Medicaid. However, they won't be included in the Medicaid related information, the data that was requested, but we did put them down here on the report. We just don't have as much information on them. So on this tab, it goes through their ownership type, the average length of stay for short stay, which is under 90 days, and long stay, which is over 90 days. The breakout of this is we have 23 facilities that are for profit. We have 6 facilities that are not for profit, and we have 3 facilities that are not for profit related to a hospital. And then the 1 facility that is a government state facility. Just some highlights. Oh, go ahead.
Jamie, are you okay with us asking questions as we go along, or would you like to hold them? Okay. When you say average length of stay less than 90 days, is that indicative of rehab or, because I guess some rehab is more than 90 days, but is that just purely a day breakdown? So somebody could have been admitted and it might not have been rehab and it was just purely a number of days?
Yes, that's my understanding. I don't know, Angela, do you happen to know? I did get this information from Dale. My understanding is just the short-term stay for residents versus how long the average stay is for a longer term resident.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So some highlights here is for the short-term stay, the average is, the range is 27 days to 56 days, but most facilities stay around the 35, 45 days, which is consistent with the post-acute rehab stays. And then the long stays are 167 days to 329. So longer stays reflect facilities with a higher share of the permanent long-term residents.
And do we know what proportion of each facility they reserve for shorter stay versus longer stay? You know, is there, is it, I'm presuming it's up to the facility, but I know that it's a financial consideration as well. Do we know what percentage of each facility is reserved for short-term versus long-term?
If Jamie doesn't have the answer to that, I'm gonna say it's usually somewhere around 10%, but they're licensed for both. It can be flexible, so it's not like
It's fluid, is that, yeah.
Can I, if I can add to that, this is Angela Smith-Jang. As Dr. Rowan said, most facilities, the beds are licensed for both Medicare and Medicaid, so they could be used for short-term or long-term. It's up to the facility how they determine that mix. You can kind of get a sense of how many are used for short-term or long-term based on the payer mix, which that's another tab in the report that Jamie will show you. What is also important to know too, though, is if someone arrives in a nursing home for short-term rehab and then decides to stay, they can stay in that bed. That is their right. So you will see people in a bed short-term and then just transition into long-term.
not uncommon.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if there's any more questions on this tab before I move on to the owner information
Yeah.
tab.
Any others?
Is this on our page?
No, we don't have this.
I know, I was just gonna say, that's not in the report that I'm looking at.
So I think you added this tab after, I think, so we can forward them an updated version.
I just have a question for the length of stays, like I know, like Helen Porter also has a memory care ward, and so those are kind of longer stays, and are these, like the longer stays, are those an average of all of the stays in the facility, or is
Yeah.
it different programs, or?
I don't think it's pulled out by like the specialty care.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they necessarily stay longer. Many who go into long-term care stay the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you track any individuals who come in for rehab or for short-term stays that move on to res care? Like, do they go into,
Lower level care?
lower level of care, but still needing?
From rehab, they probably do, and also folks who are on long-term might do that through a policy person or some other option that they have in ERC level 3, for example, in those settings. I'm not sure we have the data here specifically for that, Jamie. Do we-
No, I do not.
Angela, do you know if we have it? And if not, is it gettable?
I think we'd have to determine exactly what we're looking for. We do, I don't know that we'd have to like dig in individual files, I think, to be able to get that, but we can take a look at it.
So, I mean, I think one of the things is probably helpful for you to know. So in addition to, our concerns about EFR, we're also thinking about future planning and thinking about sort of the continuum of services, as I know you all do at Dale as well. And sort of the flow between levels of care is one of those important points, both from nursing facility to res care and vice versa. It would be helpful to know what kind of data the industry keeps about that. It might not be something you have at the state level at this point in time, but, part of our inquiry is about really, because it's a big chunk of money we're spending here, and we really want to understand it better and ensure that we're making the right kind of decisions when it comes to where we focus our resources. And so I think trying to figure out all of that this is sort of like one piece of it, but I just thought it might be helpful for you to have a bigger picture of what we're really kind of grappling with.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
So that's not a surprise to us, that that's where you're at. I want to say that we're also in that same place. I'm thinking we might be able to get that data from the receivers, like the residential care homes, from where folks coming from to them. And we will look for that. The whole plan around stabilization, sustainability that we're embarking on, that we classified to in Dale, and we're now in the engagement phase of that. So we've been meeting with, we've had our kickoff, and then we had our first work group, which was on staffing. So right there is a driver of some of the challenges. But we're looking at the continuum. We're acutely aware, as you are, that we need the whole continuum. We're very close to capacity in our nursing home system and have to plan for that. But if we wasn't for, more people are in our home and community-based system that being served than are being served in, a nursing home, or the highest level, what sort of acuity of that system. And if it wasn't for the system that Vermont has built, I think in some ways uniquely, we would have maxed out already in nursing home, given the ages. So it's as important to look at the whole continuum as it is to just look at places where we're particularly stretched right now. If we don't have the whole continuum, we're 100% in agreement. If we don't have the whole continuum, we won't be prepared as we go and look forward 5 and 10 years forward. We need the now, and we need the 5-year point, and be ready for what we're looking at in terms of the demographics in terms of 10 years.
And I think, you Commissioner referenced workforce, and I think that, one of the things that is critical is when we think about workforce, we have to think about not only the workforce for the highest end of the system of care, but the home and community-based side of the system of care. And those direct support workers are at the lowest end of the pay scale, and doing those ones in the community in particular are at the lowest end of the pay scale, and needing to have a positive impact on, trying to keep people in that field, and, trying to help them, be able to stay in that field. So, just wanting to make sure that we're thinking about, and I heard you say that, the whole continuum, and workforce is across the whole continuum. Yeah.
And thank you for that, for highlighting. I appreciate that. It's one of the things you said I just want to highlight also, in terms of going up and down, sort of the public health triangle, that people tend to go up. In other words, from more independence to more acuity. And don't come down always, where there's opportunity to come down. And so we are paying some close attention to that now to see what is blocking people from being able to come down the triangle when they can, right? So it should be bi-directional.
Thank you. And Jamie, we don't have this chart and so, and this spreadsheet. Oh, we do now?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just got it. All right. Thank you so much. Because it's hard for us honestly to see all the little numbers up on the screen, so we can look at it on our own things here. So, thank you. I think we can move to the next one.
Okay, perfect. So the next one is the owner contact information. So we gave you the owner contact information for the 33 Medicaid participating facilities. We did not give the emails and stuff as this was public. So we do have here that if contact information for each facility, it can be provided upon request, as we do have that information with us. So
Thank you. That's helpful. Obviously we are also trying to understand, we realize there's pressures on this industry, but we also realize that, the majority of them are being held with for-profit organizations, and, the decisions that for-profit organizations make about care, I know they have to meet licensing requirements, but we've heard some not very good stories, I have to say, about a few of these facilities and withholding of medications and things like that. So I think that this is sort of the beginnings. I think people are, I want to be transparent about this. People are probably aware of the private equity bill that passed out of the House earlier, and it was slated to have a long-term care component. And we knew that we had asked for this report. So we took that out. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to reappear next year. So I just feel like I want people to understand where the possibilities lie on this. Thank you. Keep going, Jamie.
okay. So the next one is the payer mix, where it breaks out between Vermont Medicaid, out-of-state Medicaid, self-pay, Medicare, other managed care, hospice, VA, and then other. And then I do have the reporting period end date, as some facilities don't submit their census at the same time. So just to give you an idea of when we got that information. So for this one, 26 out of 33 of the facilities, which is 79%, derive 60% or more revenue from the Medicaid, from Vermont Medicaid. Medicare is the secondary payer, which typically reimburses at a higher rate, which ranges from 0 to 22. Higher Medicare shares provide some revenue flexibility as well. And then commercial insurance is very minimal. It's usually around 0 to 3% commercial insurance revenue within the facilities. And we do have that facilities with 80% of Vermont Medicaid dependency have almost, just for the committee to understand, no revenue buffer in a sense. So if Medicaid rates are not covering the actual cost, they don't have the other revenue to help buffer that. Does anyone have any questions on this tab?
Only that I guess I'm a little surprised. A little surprised that Medicare isn't a little bit higher proportion given the amount of rehab that takes place, which is usually funded by Medicare.
It's a small percentage
Yeah,
of the total.
of the total.
Of the total.
Of the total number of days, and yeah. And, okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Just quickly, I was just wondering, what are some of the factors that are involved in regards to the Vermont Medicaid reimbursement, like you got, I can't see it from, it looks like Mission Care of Bennington is receiving, their percentage is 92%, whereas there's one at, Cedar Hill at 28%. What factors into that?
Mission Care is a specialty
Is that what it is exact specialties
Care
and,
is built specifically for complex care. You know, to serve the population. Others will choose what percentage of Medicaid versus commercial. Self-made. Jamie, you have anything further to?
Pay a very high rate to Mission Care.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
The rates for Mission Care also can be rates that others tap into, and some of them do have complex care services and beds. And
For
those-
specific beds, Commissioner, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, if they don't have it can be for, again, for licensure is not different, it's whether they meet the criteria for the higher rate, depending on the complexity of the case. At Mission Care, they all are, except for the ones who were their legacy and are still, has chosen to stay and are still there. So any of the new folks that came in since Mission Care opened are the complex care cases that meet criteria for that year, that higher level of reimbursement. Jamie, anything further there to clarify that?
Yeah, I did want to add that what you're saying, Commissioner, too, is that other facilities are able to get special rates like Mission Care. So the higher Vermont usage is actually other facilities that have been utilizing that. So one is Maple Lane, who uses our behavioral rates quite often, and then they're at 85%. Crescent Manor's 83%, and they have the Huntington's unit that also has special rates. So yes, I would agree.
Actually, go ahead, Representative Noyes.
I just also wonder about the transition from self-pay to Medicaid, like the spend down. It's more of just a question I'm thinking about is like, how many people go in with money, total spend down all their money, and then transition to Medicaid? I don't really need an answer. I'm just something I wonder about,
Yeah.
as people haven't really thought about how they're gonna pay for their long-term care. Or maybe they have.
Well, there's plenty that haven't, or that come in that situation and have to be assessed for eligibility for Medicaid. There is some period of if you've applied for the Medicaid and you haven't heard back yet, then there could be a retroactive period. I believe that retroactive period is getting smaller based on federal requirements for the organization, the nursing home. For a period of not getting paid, they need to be assured that there will be a retroactive payment.
Mhm.
Eligibility is based on, as you know, your finances, but also based on the acuity. So Medicare will pull back once if the rehab is not actually, you can appeal Medicare and try to make that work. But for those who come in on Medicare and need to stay in long term, they could run into that situation where they're not Medicaid eligible or not yet Medicaid eligible. And that's where there needs to be effort to either do a spend down or get that application in and so that transition that you were talking about earlier, I think Chair Wood was talking about, which is how do you go from rehab to long-term care is a place where what you're talking about that's come up.
I know, we just hear all those ads on the radio that they can protect your assets from nursing homes. And I'm just wondering, like, how many people actually come in?
Yeah, I mean, there's also the look back and all of
Yeah.
that, so, yeah.
Which is what, 5 years?
Yeah, is it, Jamie, is that changed at all? In terms of the 5-year look back for long-term care Medicaid eligibility?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't 100% know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't think it has.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to this next table.
So this next table is the employee to contracted traveler ratio and contracted traveler positions. So we have a large range of reliance. We have from nearly 0% at the Mayo to 70.76% at Berry Gardens of using travelers. So facilities above the 40% traveler share, there's 11 out of 33 that are above that. And at 5 facilities, the contract travelers actually exceed the permanent nursing staff.
Yeah.
We're seeing that it's across all the positions, RN, LPN, and nurse aides. 22 out of 33 facilities are using them across all 3 levels. We do have, in addition to that, 10 facilities that are just using it at LPN and nurse aides and not the RN level.
So a question for you. For those facilities that are using a high rate of contracted, how many of those facilities have received EFR payments?
A number of them, absolutely. We did see a correlation. I could dig into that more and provide that for you as follow-up.
Absolutely. I mean, this is part of the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if they were pay their own staff, and like only going by a couple that I see here by their local reputation of type of care. So yeah, we definitely would want to know of those with the, you know, the correlation between percentage of travelers and receipt of EFR. And I know that the department's been working with these facilities to reduce that, but you know, this is actually pretty shocking to see in some places where the contracted travelers exceed the employee count.
In the national average 5% or 10?
Somewhere around 5 to 6%.
Yeah.
And
5 or
ours
6.
is closer to 25.
Yeah. And
But it has come down here. I
Yeah.
mean, it was higher nationally also. It's come down.
yeah, and I just noticed that this is as of 2024. So when will you have 2025 information?
We should have that at the end of May.
Okay, so it'd be great if you could update this for us at the end of May, so that we could see that in particular, this particular chart.
The other thing that this makes me think about is just the morale at those facilities, having contractors that are in and out, you know, not, and outnumbering the people. So it just makes me feel like we have a lot of work to do around this.
Yeah, we do.
So it's actually different in different facilities. I've been to many of them. I've talked to the travelers, I've talked to the permanent staff, I've asked the travelers why they don't stay. They feel like. Many of the travelers are in like 2 different phases of their life. They're either early in their careers, this is an opportunity before maybe they want to settle down, family. And others are sort of empty nesters and raise their family with their chance to kind of see the world, and of course it is profitable for them to do that. So that's why they continue to
They continue to do it, yeah.
stay, even if they come back a few times, depending on, you know, the organization itself and the way in which they and how long the travelers stay, because some have longer runs and some have shorter runs. Obviously, the longer runs, the better, because then they can integrate more and just see a better morale. If it's rapid turnover, you constantly need to address and get people up to speed and have the team work. The reason for why some are doing better than others with permanent stay is multifactorial, right? So it's not just about the salary, although, you know, if they are able to pay them more, that's obviously helpful. But it's also, is there housing in the area that is it something that they can afford if they were to settle down, as opposed to be, you know, working like that? And so there's many factors about what the region as the area is, or where the work will take place. So.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I also think that they need perhaps an incentive to move and, you know, it'd be helpful to see, we can compare. You know, we say there's been progress, so hopefully we'll be able to see that when we see the 25 numbers, when this gets updated, to see progress. And, you know, at some point in time, we need to say we're serious and we're not, we, the global we, I'm not highlighting Dale, I'm just saying, we need to say that we're serious and, you know, unless you make some progress on reducing that, because you know, I'm seeing some very high ratios in places that are close by to places that have almost nothing, you know, in terms of contract, but their payer mix is also different. And I think that's just, it's an interesting, you know, this data is helping us to think, I think, a little bit more deeply with actual data than, you know, than not just hearing the stories that we hear.
What sustainability would look like and how to accomplish that. And some of the nursing homes have been, and some of the nursing homes, like some of the hospitals, have looked at having available housing for the people.
Yeah, yeah. And how long and how many times you get a bite at the apple in terms of EFR when if you're not making progress on reducing the number of travelers. You know, at some point in time, I think we need to, you know, get.
Just to remind you, Joe, that if they do get EFR, they have to submit a sustainment plan. So they have to have.
Yeah, so, you know, it'd be interesting to hear how many folks are actually, that sustainability plan involves reducing the number of travelers and increasing staff. And how many of those are achieving them, having a plan and achieving it, and the elements of that plan are obviously all really important. So, okay. Other questions? I felt like I monopolized that conversation, sorry.
Just gonna ask just something quick. Do you have the numbers of like, what is the maximum staffing capacity needed at each location? Like you're showing the numbers between travelers and contracted travelers and the employee count. But what's the number needed to staff that facility at capacity? More or less, are they why do I use 10 more than 5 suppliers?
Are you talking about like vacancy rates? Do they have high vacancy rates?
So there's I'm just gonna take the first one, Bel Air. Its maximum or staffing is, we need 100 people.
Right, so based on acuity, based on the number of beds you have, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have that, Jamie?
I do not have that. I don't know. Does Dale have that somewhere?
Dale might have that. Angela, we might need to check with Pam on that, but we can see if we can get that, maybe Pam will get it to you.
Okay.
I am trying to understand the tab. So I get contracted staff as a % of the total nursing staff. And when it says nursing staff, is that meaning RN, LPN, and nurse aides? When it says nursing staff, is it all levels of nursing?
Correct. So yeah, RN, LPN, nurse aide. Correct.
Okay.
That's under the rate setting nursing category. So
Okay. And then help me. So I'm just going to, because it's at the top of the page. So at Bel Air, 4.52% of the nursing staff are contracted. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Oh, correct. Yes. So 4.52% of all the nursing staff is contract staff.
Okay. And then employee as a percentage of total nursing staff. I don't really understand what that means.
So that is looking at the other end. 95.48% are permanent staff, not agency of the total staff. So that's just
Okay,
giving.
that's just a financial, okay, that's just a calculation, okay,
Correct. Yeah.
okay.
Of permanent staff.
I'm now reading, if you add those two together, it's 100%, okay. Okay. I was thinking it had something to do with total staff, but it's not total staff, it's just nursing staff.
Right. Yes, I can understand the confusion though.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on this tab? Is that noise? You have a question?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't.
Well, actually, I have a question.
Okay, Representative Gearbox.
Some of the line items only have contracted traveler job titles that are like LPN. So I wonder like, and this might be a question for Dale, like what determines who they contract out for? Because obviously like an LPN is more cost effective than an RN to contract out, right? Their level of pay might be different. So I'm just trying to understand like,
Well, I mean, there are certain requirements for what level you would need, right? But to your point, like if you need a license, certain number of license, so it's enough in license, but if you need the RN skill set. So that would be at the facility determining what your needs are and where your vacancies are. If you're particularly having difficulty hiring LPNs and you need them either because it helps in your mix to have the license but you don't need the RN level, maybe you have sufficient, then you're gonna be looking for right, so the mix, of course, RN, LPN, and like an LNA is very much a part of how like the director of nursing and the nursing team is working all the time to make sure they meet regulatory requirements, and then they can balance what where there could be cost efficiencies associated with it while staying within compliance. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to be clear about when if you can give us, when you give us the updated data from 2025, if you can highlight which of these facilities also received EFR payments on one or more occasions, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move to the next tab.
So the next tab is the number of requests the Division of Rate Setting received for nursing facilities. So I just want to say, like, state fiscal year, we have 20. They weren't 20 complete requests. So I'll go through that quickly as well. So for state fiscal year 25, all 5 of those were complete requests. We granted 5 of them. So they were all granted. In state fiscal year 23, we had 12 requests. One of them was actually incomplete. We never heard back from them. So therefore, there was really only 11 complete requests, of which they were all granted. In 24, there were 20 requests. 8 of them they withdrew the application and resubmitted. And then 1 of them was also incomplete. So really, that's 11 complete requests again. And 8 were granted. 3 of those were denied. And then in state fiscal year 25, we had 9 requests. 3 of them were incomplete. So really we had 6 complete requests, of which all of those were granted.
Can you speak to 26 because there is some continual good news as you see the numbers of requests going down?
Yes. So as of today, for state fiscal year 26, we've had 4 requests. 1 was incomplete, 1 was denied, and 2 are currently pending Division of Rate Settings review. So it has decreased, but we're still not at the end of the state fiscal year. So we're not 100% sure how much will come in, but as of right now, we've only had 4 and 2 are pending and the other 2 are not. 1 denied, 1 incomplete.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. So in your update to this report, if you can extend this, we perhaps didn't ask the exact right question in the budget bill last year. So the detail that you just provided, the number of incomplete, the number withdrawn or whatever, and then the ones that were the total number that were actually approved would be helpful, because if we were just go on this, we would say, oh, well, 20 received and 20 didn't receive. That would be really helpful.
Yes.
Representative Bishop and then Representative McGill.
Another data point that I'm curious about, and The curiosity arises because I believe the Green Mountain Nursing Home in Colchester, which has since closed, may have received EFR. So I'm curious of applicants, what we know, applicants who were denied, applicants who were approved, or those that withdrew. Are there other instances of closure?
That is the only one that has occurred with an EFR request denied or approved.
Thank you.
My question.
Yeah. Somebody told me this. I think it might have been you, Commissioner Bowen, but I'm not positive. But that they have to repay, some portion or all or whatever of that EFR. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, we've worked with them to get recoupments for that EFR. Absolutely.
Remember, the purpose of the EFR is to prevent the closure.
Closure, right.
There.
What happens to that money?
Yeah, when.
It comes back. I mean, we had to cut a lot of things from our budget recommendations in order to be able to do this. So I'm just wondering what happens with leftover money, or if, someone doesn't ultimately.
Well, right now, it wouldn't be left over because we don't know what the need will be as we continue through
So
the
it'd be
fiscal
rolled
year.
over.
So at the end,
Okay.
right, we'll close out.
We get an annual closeout report on Choices for Care that comes to us. So it would go back into the Choices for Care account. And then, as Commissioner just said, at the end of the year, there's a closeout process with any pending expenses that we know we need to pay or are accounted for. And then there's legislative language about 1% and all of that kind of stuff. So, but it does come back into Choices for Care. It doesn't just kind of go to some bottom line somewhere. Yeah, go ahead, Representative.
A follow up on the Green Mountain Nursing Home. Is that recoupment complete? Or if not, do we believe it to be on track and coming back in the way that we expect or hope?
It's a Jamie question.
Yes, so the way that rate setting works with recoupment is we let Gainwell know that we want full recoupment. So as soon as they get paid, we recoup it. So that has been underway. They did have a rate update, so I do need to reach out to make sure that we're complete in the recoupment. But my understanding is we're absolutely on track. I know at this point we've recouped at least 90% of it. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Representative.
With all the increase in EFR requests, is there enough fiscal stability in place that will prevent possible future closures or any type of service disruptions?
So it's a reduction. You say that the increase is.
Yeah, but even still, was that increase with 22, and it seems to start coming down to the pre-pandemic levels, but there's still,
Are you asking?
I'm just more or less
Were we
asking.
successful in
Yes.
preventing closures?
Yeah.
Yes, we were successful in preventing closures. I think they were saying that none of the other ones who got EFRs ended up closing on here. But that we're at 2 pending right now is I can't speak to the whole year yet because we're not there.
Yeah.
But we are, entering April and we have fewer than we might have expected at this time. But sometimes it comes out of the end, so we just have to wait and see. But is it effective in helping? So yes, in the more immediate, because when there's a very fiscal evaluation that happens before they're approved for EFR. You can't just ask for it because it would be easier that if we have more money. It has to be that you're in fairly dire circumstances and the infusion does get them back on track. To your point, though, Chairwood, if you want to know whether you did that work to the extent that they're more stable now, or do they need EFR again? I know that when I looked at some of this data during the pandemic, I think it was a different world. So it was harder for them at that time, and they didn't have a lot of occupancy either, right? They were trying to maintain. But it does seem to have that effect that it gets them out of that we won't be able to operate. We would have to close place. And for Green Mountain, they had expected to continue. And they reached a point where they just couldn't. And so the analysis and the conversations and the assessments that were provided were, yes, they were at risk, but that this should work. And at some point, it just did. But of course, you have to recoup those funds. They're there for that particular reason. And if they're not being used for that reason, they can be used for some other. Anything to add to that, Jamie?
Yeah, I did want to add too, because I know looking at this, the increase, right? Like it jumped from 22 to 23, just to give perspective in how the rates are set in regard especially to the traveling nurses, that in 23, so the nursing homes fiscal year 23, their traveling staff increased the usage. The cost is about 3 times more expensive than having a permanent staff. So in their fiscal year 23, they had a huge cost increase, but the way the rates work is they were paid off of their fiscal year 21 costs, which weren't caught up at that point with the new cost. So that's why we're seeing such a large increase from 22 to 23. And one suspected reason, though there's many factors, unfortunately, in the rates, is that the drop here could be that on July 1st, 2025, the nursing rate got rebased to fiscal year 2023 costs, which is now including the contract staff that wasn't included previously.
So
Go ahead.
rebasing includes the contracted staff rates.
It's the rates. It's the nursing rates.
Here.
Do you want to explain
I'm
that,
good.
Jamie, for the rates for permanent staff and traveling staff? Would that be different?
No, so it's all lumped into the nursing category of the rate. But in 21, nursing homes didn't have as high as usage for nursing traveling nurses. And we know that the traveling nurses for a nursing home to pay the hourly rate is actually higher, about, I think we found 3 times higher than if they were to pay an hourly for a salary employee. So their costs increased significantly in their fiscal year 23, which just recently got captured July of 2025 in the rate.
So that is another way to put that is that, so when you rebase the rates, they're now based upon what the higher expenses were, and so the rates went up. And when do they come back? When do they come back down ever?
Well, when did the rates ever come back down? Well, you know. Just like inflation. What is
Yeah,
it cost?
that was a you know, conceptual or theoretical comment.
April Fools.
Right.
April Fools, right?
Okay,
Sorry.
that being said,
Yeah.
every 2 years, the nursing gets rebased, and every 4 years, the whole rebate beyond nursing, right? So there are some recommendations in the nursing, the EFR report, the other one, because there were 2 reports, the other one, that have proposals that look at the frequency of the rebasing to get it as close perhaps as to reality as one could.
Right, of course. And I think, you know, what we will probably spend a bit more time on this whole, you know, rebasing and understanding the regulatory framework around this a little bit in depth, a little bit more in depth at another time. But, you know, so I think, you know, we're seeing a reduction in the number of EFRs because the rebasing has occurred and their rates are higher. So they don't, based upon having those contractual employees. So it's almost like a little bit of a vicious circle that they're rewarded for having contracted staff.
And it's
Which is not really the incentive that we're wanting to have.
Yeah, I mean, and there are complications to that, and why we're so cautious to say we're glad to see that it's low at this point in the year, but we just don't know what the next few months will bring. In terms of the pressures, so we'll see. But we do think that the reduction is as expected related to the rebasing.
You said how much more travelers were than regular staff, but I couldn't understand what you said, so I'm trying to hear what that percentage was.
Oh, so yeah, the contract nursing staff costs we found are approximately 3 times more per hour than the employed
3
staff.
times more per hour. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a perverse incentive that we've got going on in this system, I have to say. And I realize it's a phenomena that was created in large part due to COVID. And I have this little bit of foreboding sense that it is not something our regulatory structure has caught up with. And it sounds like you are looking at that. Is that right? Or?
Yes, we are looking at the rebasing. That is part of, like the commissioner said, the proposal to see if there's, would make sense to change the way we rebase, especially nursing. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, because it is what's happening is people are being rewarded for using more contracted nursing staff and at a perverse rate of 3 times what they're paying their other staff. And that's a structural problem that we need to address. Representative Garofano.
I have a really dense question, and forgive the dense nature of this. Do we know if these nursing homes paid permanent staff like double, if not triple? Is it just the fact that the staff does not exist? I mean, do we not have local nurses that will take double with benefits, a secure job that is permanent? You know what I mean? It's like, are people just not available and we have to bring people in?
There's a lot. We have a workforce shortage across the board. So we're seeing it here as well in Vermont, right? There are fewer people coming into these fields, fewer people to work many different types of jobs, across many different types of sectors here. You have an affordability crisis. There's many factors that pressure why they can't hire. They would prefer to hire permanent staff. The travelers is not, there's no reward for the organization to hire travelers. It is a pressure on them for their costs. They would prefer to hire permanent staff, and they can't get them, and then they go to for those who are choosing to be permanent staff, they have reasons why they're not being travelers, right? They're in different places in their life. They have families. They like the camaraderie. They like the stability of having a permanent job. They like, the benefits, and to be able to prepare for their future in a different way than the travelers. And there are more people coming back because we did drop from like 30 something to 25. So it is in terms of the percentage of use. So there is more, and there's efforts, and it's, nursing home by nursing home, some struggle more than other nursing homes. And what we're looking for, where we can learn from best practices, where are there folks who have fewer travelers, and what are they doing differently? And like I said, some of them were looking at housing or being able to have housing for some of the staff. Others had the ability to increase some of the salaries. Others were looking at different types of schedules, 12-hour shift or contributing to peak. There's all different kinds of ways that nursing homes are looking at their models to try to address it. What we want to do as part of our SNS plan, or this stabilization and sustainability plan, is to find those best practices and elevate that and get that across the board. That's some of the work that we are doing through that process. By bringing people in and engaging, we're having conversations that are interesting in terms of what's working for some, and why it may or may not work for everyone.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Eustace.
I'm looking at the report on 2025 and I see two listings from the same nursing home. I wonder if someone could just speak to that,
Yeah, it could have crossed fiscal years, but Jamie, do you wanna explain that?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So they requested the EFR in 24 for their 24 fiscal year. But by the time we were able to actually issue the EFR, it wasn't until.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, why don't we, now that you've moved to that, let's move to that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you weren't jumping ahead. That's good. That's fine. We were ready to move.
So so I broke it up into fiscal year 2023, 2024, 2025, and this goes into the facility name, the type of control, the amount received, the reason why it was requested, and then the reason why we awarded the EFR. So the difference here to note is the tab 6 was within the state fiscal year they requested, and then tab 7, 8, and 9 are depending on when they actually received it. So that's why it's a little bit off with that. For state fiscal year 2023, $8,809,093 was awarded. So $8,809,093 across 9 awards, which had 8 facilities. So this again had another one that overlapped because of the timing.
Yeah.
And, I see in the reasons, it's pretty much the same reasons all the way down through.
Yeah.
When we say, like urgent cash needs, or we, say, things about financial viability, what is urgent cash? How do you define things like urgent cash needs? I guess, what are the things that you look at when you make a decision to approve an EFR payment?
Yep, absolutely. So one thing to note, just so the committee knows, when we get an EFR application, we do a thorough, I would even call it audit, where we're looking at their balance sheet, their income statement. We're looking at what their AP is at the moment, what their AR is, so their accounts payable, accounts receivable. We are looking at when they tell us the reason is staffing, then we're digging into their staffing to making sure what they're saying is actually true, what we can see. They're saying their rate decreased, then we're looking to see if the rate actually did decrease and why it decreased. We check to see, are they capped in an area, like indirect or resident care, that is causing this financial situation. So when we say urgent cash need, we'll see that on their balance sheet, they don't have a lot of cash in the bank, which is absolutely a concern. We'll also see that maybe they have minimal cash in the bank, but then also have accounts payable that are 500,000, and they have their staffing contract telling them that they'll pull staff if they don't pay them. So we've had situations like that come in, and of course we verify to make sure what they're saying is actually the truth, because we know sometimes, people want to express what's going on, but it might be a little bit exaggeration. So we at rate setting make sure that everything they're saying makes sense based off all their financial information.
Representative, go ahead, Representative Steady.
Just out of curiosity, how often do agencies have audits? Is there like every few years, or just so they can like our town, like municipalities have to have regular audits so they can see where the cash is coming in, cash is going out? And how often do nursing homes or any organizations nursing homes have to have an audit?
So a nursing home, when they report to rate setting, we require them to have audited financial statements from an independent auditing firm. And then on top of that, we then review/audit at this point all of their cost reports every year. So we're going through making sure there's no increases and decreases. If there is large increases, we know why, because Obviously, we need to make sure that's allowable per our rules, per CMS. So that when we get the EFR as well, we're digging into that and comparing it to our most recent information to see where increases were and what they're saying. Does that answer the question?
It did. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jamie, you talked about the balance sheets. You also look at P&L statements.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you do any analysis of, I guess I was, say real estate costs? So lease slash mortgage kind of payments, and is there any differential or anything that you consider, I guess, is there a range of what you might consider to be normal cost per square foot or however it's measured?
So a good question. I don't know if we have a normal range per se, but we absolutely do look at that. We've seen where leases have increased. And we know that the owner of the property, the owner of the operations of the nursing home is also the owner of the property, which then at that point, we take that into consideration absolutely for EFR and would take that out of the calculation that they might have had because understandably, Medicaid isn't going to pay for that. So we do absolutely look at the property. I know another big one that's come up too is like distributions. We also look at that as well. So we do try to do a very thorough review to make sure we're only paying for the items that are important for the homes to stay open.
And do you know, out of the facilities that are owned, how many of the real estate is owned by real estate investment trusts?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can definitely dig in to see if we have that information and provide that in follow-up.
Representative McGill?
Could we get, and you wouldn't have to go back through all the years, but even just like 2025, it would be useful to see kind of like amount requested versus what was paid. I know you kind of get was requested and was awarded. Like I just see under my local one, they requested financial distress due to Medicaid reimbursement shortfalls, high per diem costs, excessive management, home office, and related party fees, contract nursing cost increase and billing collection issues, risk of closure without relief. And then for what you were awarded, it was to cover estimated losses on Medicaid services, ensuring continued operation and quality residence. So I'm guessing not all of that was covered. Some of that, I know related party fees can actually be a red flag for some financial issues. Yeah, I'm just wondering kind of what are all of our nursing homes requested and what are we actually covering when we give this?
They ask for not necessarily what they get. Jamie, we should have that, right?
We do. If you would like, I can update 23, 24, and 25, one to include the amount requested.
If you just did 2025, it would give us a good sense of kind of what folks are. Yeah, I don't think, unless others want all the years.
Less relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 25 is fine because, we recognize there was post-pandemic, there was a lot of stuff that we can't really kind of consider normal. So, but I think by the time we're at 2025, we should be starting to hopefully recover from that. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if the department looks at kind of the balance sheets on it.
It's got one of the ladybug's growing right up.
Oh, me or?
Yeah, you got it. It was getting towards the here.
Thank you so much.
Some of the like stinky bitey ones.
I know.
You got friends.
You have
Some that fly on the wall.
Yes.
No, I was just wondering, like, when one of the facilities comes and says we could use some help, we look at their balance sheets. And I just wondered if the department has the capacity or looks at balance sheets to try to be preactive, right out in front of it, proactive, before they get to a point. Is there, I don't know, is there any ability to do that and try to figure out how to help on a smaller level instead of waiting for them to say the sky is falling.
Let's see what Jamie says to that. I have some thoughts. Go ahead.
That's a great question. We don't currently do that. So to answer that part, we don't currently do that. Do we have the capacity to do it? I would have to think about that more potentially, but I would need to think about how that would look. And is that something that rate setting would be able to determine just by looking at their financials?
Yeah.
They
have to operate, the providers have to operate their model. They have to operate within their, they have a responsibility to operate. The EFR is extraordinary.
Yeah, I know.
Right? It's supposed to be extraordinary financial relief just so that they don't close if they really are gonna be that close to closing. Because we would be in a difficult situation, just losing the account. That was a big deal. As far as getting into their finance and operations, if it impacts operations, if it in fact impacts quality, if it impacts access, then from the regulatory or from the survey and certification end of it, we will be seeing that, right? So you're saying, what's our preventive strategy so that we can be helpful, right? So that's part of what we're trying to look at across the board. Keep in mind, these folks all have requirements that come from CMS and, and from the state. But those are the drivers that have to keep them, in a reasonable operating space in order to meet all of those criteria. So if you're running up against fiscal problems early and your operation is faltering, you're going to run afoul of that and you're not going to be able to do business. When we come in and see a quality issue, whether it's routine or there's a complaint or whatever, anything that's routine review is a proactive approach.
Sure.
When you've got a complaint and you're coming in, that's a responsive approach. But you're gonna require them to ensure the quality and they will need to have operations that work in order for them to do that. That's all staffing and all right. So from a regulatory and a quality perspective, this is constant.
Sure.
This is all the time in there. So it's not just like EFRs is the only time we're in the space and looking at the operation.
Right, and I think about the capacity of your ability of licensing and protection or long-term care ombudsman to do this work. We're spending, $14 million on EFR. Would a couple FTEs be able to get out in front of that and really reduce that down so that we're not getting to the point where we need EFR?
Yeah, I mean, all very good questions. How do we prevent folks from getting to a place where they could end up closing?
Right.
Because they don't want to close.
No.
Okay, so they're looking all the time at their operations and where the pressures are, right? And they're, we don't know how many of them figured out their model, right? When we go and we talk with them about their models, some of them being very innovative, right? Some of them are really thinking this through and the sustainability, some of the things that Chair Wood was talking about in terms of how you balance your payer mix, how much of it is rehab where there's, a certain churn of return, how you balance your commercial and self-pay versus the Medicaid. Some of them are really paying attention to that and doing that well, and others less so.
Is there communication amongst all of them for best practices and, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think
What are
part
the
of what
great
the
ideas?
SNS plan is getting them in the room. The engagement right now is them talking about their what's happening at their end and what was working at their end and what's not working at their end. So this is the beginning maybe of a process. They don't have necessary, well, I have to say through like Helen Layton and her group, they're very much on top of trainings
Yeah.
and convenings, and so they do have opportunity through that collective
Sure.
to be having those kinds of conversations about well, what's working and what we need to do to sustain. We have regular contact with Helen, where we don't wait for a problem. We have regular meetings to
Sounds
see
good.
how we can be helpful in some of those projects.
Thank you.
You know, some of the things, I guess this is a follow-up to Representative McGill's question, when I see things like management fees and owner distributions reducing cash and urgent need to pay vendors in the same breath as owner distributions reducing cash. And I see in several of them low occupancy. And yet at the same time, you know, I'm familiar with some people that we are sending out of state because nursing homes won't take them in Vermont, or for some reason, we're told that they don't have any beds available, which the data doesn't actually, at least the last time we saw it, support. So you know, it's trying to weave a picture of how all of these things fit together. You know, that is, you know, I appreciate, Jamie, the sort of level of detail that rate setting goes through when they're evaluating that. And I just am wondering, and I know that there's close relationships between Dale and rate setting, you know, because it really is sort of a combination of all of these things that need to be considered when a decision is made about whether to grant extraordinary financial relief. Like, I'm pretty sure taxpayers wouldn't be too keen on us giving out money for for-profit organizations when the owner distributions were part of the issues that caused the cash payment and inability to pay vendor payments. So that's where I think having the information.
Having occupancy while we're exiting people to the streets today on oxygen.
So I think it is helpful for us to see, you know, the amount requested versus the amount received, and, you know, to see where you've most likely taken into account some of those things that, you know, appeared to be either excessive or not allowable from a rate setting perspective. You
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can update this one as well, like I said, so I'll add the column of amount requested, but I'll also go into more detail on what was actually allowed and what was taken into consideration. Because, right, we do not pay for owner distributions. We look at management fees because if they're extremely high and causing this situation, we're not going to be paying for that portion of it. So absolutely, I can go into more detail on the 2025s.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, that's calling out a for-profit organization, but, you know, we can see, you know, Gifford got $4 million, you know, and that's a nonprofit hospital-based organization, and that had to do with fees, you know, some of that had to do with fees as well. So I don't want to, I'm not really looking at for-profit versus not-for-profit. I just am looking at the expenses that get charged to these facilities and how much of those we consider to be part of the business and how much of that is part of the public good, and what, you know, what do Vermonters as taxpayers owe, you know, to be able to do that. Because when I look at some of these, you know, I don't know, it gives me pause. I just will say it gives me pause. And you know, we don't have all of the details that you all have. I realize that. So appreciate the level of detail that you have provided here.
But we will definitely get some more of what you're asking for, and to show, I mean, they may ask for lots of different things. That doesn't, you know, this is so thorough that, and so really within the guardrails of what is allowable for Medicaid, right? So it's not going to be what they ask for, and often the amount is not what they ask for. But it's very carefully done. And to your so this is older data than like the
Yeah.
current.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
already
obviously.
like, so we won't really want you to have as much updated as we can get for you. But you also said like the occupancy, we have an empty bed, but we have very few empty beds at this point, just to be right, and anyone who meets the criteria that's in the GA system is offered. I know that would be a.
Can we get an update? Today is April first,
I know.
and
It
I
is.
believe it's something like 260, 280 people are being removed from the hotels today, including 42 children. And I happen to know of a few cases that it seems like would be within Dale's wheelhouse. I know one person who's bedbound, and is suddenly trying to figure out how to live on the streets today. I know a family with a disability, with 3 children, one of who has disabilities, a breathing disorder, requires electricity for her breathing treatments, to sustain life, going to the streets. And another person who the last time he was unsheltered had open heart surgery, has created complex medical challenges, lifelong, who is again being exited to the street. So I'm just wondering, has there been?
Yeah, so much.
Are you doing?
So much.
I'm just hoping we have a better experience in identifying places that are not the streets for these really
Right,
vulnerable
right,
people.
and some who come into nursing home, they choose to do so. Angela's on, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more there.
I just know that as of today, there are 2 choices for care participants who are likely being exited from GA, and the case managers have worked with them on plans for their exit. I'm not aware of the cases that you're mentioning, so it would be great if you could share any of that information. I would
I'll connect
love to
with you
follow up
offline.
on that.
Well, online, but offline.
Representative Steady. I have a question. So seeing this questions on the balance sheet, should recipients of any awarded funds be required to engage in a third-party CFO to come in and get their business back on track?
You mean like a receivership or something?
Yeah,
Well, if necessary, but that usually not.
Usually not.
And that we would go through a whole process.
But I was gonna say, the department has taken that
Sure,
step
yeah.
in the
They
past.
have,
Yes,
they have, that's it. That
Yes.
was the next question. Was there any mandate of the funds allotted to be assigned to these financial?
Yes,
Fiscal
I mean,
management.
I can recall a couple of specific circumstances where the department's taken what they call receivership, and they essentially, yeah, it's a legal process, so it's.
Oh, it's not good.
It's not just.
It's not cost effective.
I mean,
okay.
Well, no, it's necessary in some cases
Oh,
because of
okay.
quality of care and financial issues. And so the department takes the steps that they need to in order to assure quality of care. So that has happened in the past. Yes.
There's some active now.
Yes, right now.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Well, it's in the continuum.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, sort of on this, so I was made aware of, several, folks who are on actually public guardianship that Dale has public guardianship for, who were being discharged from hospitals and needed to go to a nursing facility, and they actually had to be placed out of state. Some as far away as Maine and, New Jersey, Massachusetts.
Going back,
Well, no, I'm talking about they're there now.
okay, so a couple of things on that, so. Yes, there are, and it's usually like border facilities, and if you're saying there are in Maine, that might be a little far from the border. But usually
New
it's,
Jersey.
it could be a specialty, right, so it could be due to complexities. We have some specialty care in Vermont, not enough. So it could be based on what their special needs are that the facility can support it. It could be because there was some reason why they weren't accepted. What we did at one point was pull many folks back into Mission Care, for example, because they can manage those complexities as they are. So if people are interested at this point in coming back, we do try to bring them back. into Vermont, but it is necessary for us to have those relationships outside of Vermont, because we have such a growing demographic and because our capacity, we're like over 90% filled now, so we need to maintain those relationships. For the public guardians, they work very hard not to have them go out there. They have to travel.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how we maintain really our official role as somebody's guardian when they're several hundred miles away.
So there's not very many, it's not like a lot.
No, I know.
Yeah, but in those circumstances, they may travel, but they'll also be working with the individual and the family as to whether they want to stay there, in which case they would work on shifting their guardianship. Or do they want to come back and then work to bring them back? But the guardians really press hard, I can tell you, to not have a scenario where they're so far away they can't reach them.
Oh, yeah, I realize the guardians do, but it seemed to me like, what I was hearing at least was they were being told there's no room at the inn.
Yeah, less so
Yeah,
recently, really
Yeah.
less so recently, because it definitely got popped and we really don't want that scenario.
of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes there were folks who were boarding in hospitals for a very long time, and it really had to do with what the special needs were that couldn't easily be met. And then so to relieve them of being a boarder in a hospital, the other option, out of state, was the one that was selected. So there are circumstances that I'm familiar with where 1 or 2 times something like that happened. But in most cases, when the guardians say this is gonna not be good for this, we honor that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand border, the border states and the border facilities for sure. I just was like, when I heard Maine and New Jersey, I thought like, how do we maintain our role as a public guardian?
Are there specific specialties or is it just like a supercharged, extra skilled kind of nursing facility? Are there,
Like
yeah.
certain equipment or.
Yeah.
So in Vermont, we have right now one facility that has ventilator capacity, for example. If they were
Yeah.
exceeded there, they would have to go out,
Yeah.
right? What we are doing through rural health transformation is trying to get a second facility.
Yeah.
With ventilation. We also have some who have ability for dialysis, but not enough, so
That's something I've heard, yeah.
Bariatric, so in some of these scenarios, that might be why they were going out. I'm not saying the specific one, but in some,
Yeah.
that's why. And then we need to have the relationship, with outside of Vermont, because we could reach capacity and do want to make sure that we have, an option.
Identified.
Okay, other thoughts? You've gotten to the end of your tabs there. I just didn't know if there's anything from the report, which is a little bit different than, this data that you wanted to speak to.
So you're talking about the report from December, correct?
Yes.
So, just a couple of things I think to note from that report is we do have proposals or thoughts that are being brought up during, shareholder engagement. So some of the areas that we've already talked about was how we're rebasing, the timing, the rebasing. Another one that is big with EFR is that a lot of the smaller facilities are being capped. So, an example is they might have to have nursing staff, even though that's not really the cap part, but they have the same type of cost that any other facility, but because they're smaller, their per diem is higher than the cap. So they're being capped. So one proposal is to look at it in peer groups for the caps so that they're all taking into consideration, in the equity sense of things, instead of just based off of this is what your per diem is. Another area is the step-up process. For anyone who doesn't know the step-up process, that is where we look at their property costs when they purchase a new facility and increase it based off of many factors in the rules. And there we would like to tweak the rules because currently sales are happening more than 12 years. Right now, you have to own a property for 12 years to even get a step up. We have so many sales right now that are happening that have not owned it for 12 years, so they're not getting a step up. So sometimes their property basis is back until, I think we have one back into the 2000s because it was sold multiple times. It wasn't eligible for step up, which is, hindering the ownership and isn't necessarily enticing buyers to come in and purchase facilities with that. So we have that. There's areas we're working on currently. That is PDPM is a new acuity measure in the rates because CMS went from RUG-4 to PDPM. We're noticing some ups and downs depending on providers for that. So we're going to be doing validation audits to make sure that what the providers are reporting as their case mix score is accurate, and also helping them in education of how should they code things so that they are reporting it correctly. And then from there, the plan is to see where the PDPM scores lie, and if there's more issues, to dig further and to understand what's going on and what's causing decreases. And then the other area is that we will be working with VHCA and nursing homes to help train and provide education for special rates, as there are plenty of facilities who have special rate residents that aren't, applying for special rates, or they're just not taking special rate residents. We've heard feedback that it might be too complicated, it might be too much. So really want to dig into what's going on, why are the providers avoiding it, and try to figure out if there's a way to make it easier or just provide training that might help their understanding a bit better. So there's a few areas that we focus on in that report that could help the stability of nursing homes.
So I think, we're obviously interested in nursing homes being stable, but we're also interested in making sure that Vermonters aren't paying more than they should pay. It's just interesting to hear what you talk about the acuity scores and the case mix, because we hear testimony that says, well, nursing homes are taking on older people that have higher needs. And so then that doesn't seem logical then that their acuity scores would be going down. Is that what you said, that some facilities are having lower acuity scores or whatever those initials are that you referred to?
Yes, so some of them have dropped. I will say there's a weird nuance here. We switched to PDPM. And the way we get
Say what that is
scores,
again, PDPM?
oh boy, I'm not going to remember. Patient-driven payment model. That's
Okay.
So with that, the state has a contractor that helps us get that information from, and we, the providers, but not from the providers, we get it from the CMS itself, the scores reported. RUG-4 previously, we got straight from the providers. So we didn't have it straight from CMS. So what rate setting's trying to figure out is the PDPM increase and decrease related to the switch to RUG to PDPM, or could it also include a factor of going from provider submitted versus getting it straight from CMS, and if they're actually recording it properly in the CMS model. So there's multiple factors, and we're trying to pinpoint what is the real cause here and what can we do going forward.
Sure. And what's your interaction with licensing and protection, who the division of licensing that goes out and does the survey and certification inspections and reviews? And I'm presuming that they look at, acuity and quality of care and all of those kinds of things. Is there any intersection? Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
I do know that, Commissioner, yeah.
I don't know that everybody knew that. You guys.
No, I did. I'm just, because they have very specific things that they have to look at, and I'm just trying to figure out if the data that CMS has on acuity is provided by the nursing homes directly to CMS, or if that's something that is a factor of the licensing and, survey and certification reporting that happens through Dale Division of Licensing and
Thank you so
Protection.
So, currently we don't necessarily, I mean, we have a relationship with DLP, but not around acuity. Previously, the providers would submit it and then we would reach out to DLP to kind of look at it together and understand. But now that we're getting it from CMS directly, we go through the contractor, which it's, rate settings work in the contractor as long as also Dale is too. So we do have contacts from both departments working with our contractor. But they're pulling it straight from CMS now, but I have not had conversations with DLP recently about the PDPM scores.
Representative Steady?
The chart you showed, why would the for-profits facilities have much lower numbers than the nonprofit? It kind of looks like mismanagement somewhere on the nonprofit side.
Lower numbers for what, Representative Steady?
Managing of the places.
I'm sorry, are you
I-
talking about the charts that we saw? Are you talking about
Yeah.
the payments received? Or
Yeah. Why would the for-profits look like they're managed better? I guess that would be the question. Money-wise. No? Am I asking? I don't know.
Yeah, so
They have lower numbers, I guess. I don't know.
they're
This
receiving
looks like
lower
one
numbers.
managed better than the other.
I'm not sure we can get that managed better or not.
Yeah.
And for-profit enough for some profit,
It just looks like the for-profits are managed better, money-wise. I don't know.
you
It's
mean
hard to
they had more
explain.
money?
I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how.
The numbers were lower for the nonprofits.
Lower in what? You need,
I know, you're not saying what.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. It just looks like the for-profits are managed better with the monies, but that's okay. I
Are
can
you
get
saying they received lower EFR, like their EFR amounts were less than some of the nonprofit EFR amounts that was received?
Is that your question, Representative Steady?
Sure. It's not what I'm
Looking
thinking, but
quickly, I
that's
don't-
okay.
I don't think that's.
It's not accurate.
It's not accurate, but yeah,
No,
it's quite a mix, actually.
I can say, there are more, so I can say that we try to look at operations like for-profits, we look at quality for-profits versus not for-profit, so that we can understand what's happening different, to understand if there are differences, where those differences are. Not every for-profit is the same, some of the for-profits are those small privately owned, and others are more like the bigger, sort of more corporate. So we also try to understand the difference between the for-profits that are kind of small and individually owned and
so it could be the
corporate.
size of the
Corporate.
facility.
Well, it could be, and it could be like if it's corporate and, then there's perhaps a different level of fee of fundings or supports or back office.
Do they receive a statewide tax deduction? Do they receive a statewide tax deduction?
Are you talking,
Facilities, the nonprofit or the profit, do they get a reduction in statewide?
Hospitals, many hospitals
Yeah.
are considered nonprofits, so that is the tax deduction that I think you were talking about. That would be relevant for many of the ones listed here that are
Okay.
tied to hospitals. So
Okay, this is new to me, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's not that many left of tied to hospitals, it's really interesting in secret faculty, you're looking at that too, like which ones are tied to hospitals, what are the advantages?
Yeah, see, I guess I
disadvantages? Some who pulled out fully, and some who pulled out partially, and just looking at those models as well, to see what the differences are. We're trying to slice this every possible way to see where where it's working
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I I think that there's obviously differences between sizes of the size of the facility.
Yeah, I didn't think of
and,
that.
how many beds the overhead is spread over and, all of those kinds of things. And,
That's true.
I think, while we, right, the mix of patients.
And their payment.
And their payments,
How would cessation fit in?
excuse me, I was talking.
Oh, sorry.
And I think that, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing in evaluating this and evaluating any potential future regulatory change is not only the stability of the organizations that are covered under these rules, but also what Vermonters should be paying for when it comes to Medicaid rates and what we shouldn't be paying for. And, I appreciate that you've highlighted some of those things in these charts and, in your assessment of that. So I think we need to balance any potential regulatory change with both of those lenses, what Vermont should be paying for and the stability of the organization as, obviously also being a goal, because we do need nursing facilities to be strong and healthy. And what's Vermont taxpayers' role in that versus, owners' role in that. And so thank you. Thank you for all the work that went into putting this
it's really
together. We appreciate that very much. And I think this is probably, we'll be having other conversations about this same topic. And I'm glad to see that Kathleen Danette has actually been able to retire. I know she was at rate, or she's still hanging around at rate 7.
She's doing her EFRs. Yep, no, she's still here, hanging around.
She's the one,
Kathleen is, she won't let go. That's good. That's good. Good to, it's good to have some historical perspective too, right?
Absolutely. I try to soak it in.
Yeah. Representative Steady, did you have a question?
Can you tell me what cessation is? In a
The end of something?
Yeah.
Stopping doing something? So
Do
what,
people get dismissed or discharged? Or do they have to have a place to go, right?
you mean, would they be discharged without a place
Right.
to go?
So it's an involuntary discharge of a resident. So, but that can't happen, right? Because they have to have a place to go. Like when my brother said he was coming to move in with me. They called, no, he didn't. They told him he did, but they called me and they wouldn't let him just leave. So that doesn't happen, right? They have to have a place.
They
Just
need to have a
curious.
discharge plan, if that's what you're saying, but yeah, I mean,
Because
there's,
it says under cessation that it's an involuntary discharge of a resident for non-payment, safety issues, or improved health,
the non-payment.
or closure of a facility, but they would find a place for them, right?
Well, usually they would have the family have some responsibility for that. If they're not getting paid, they see, if they're not getting paid.
I kind of went off topic.
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
certain things that would kick into place there, but if they're eligible for Medicaid, so the application process should go in, they should be able to do that through the nursing home should have support, like social work, support to be helping with that. Also, SNC or survey and certification will help if people need to have an eligibility assessment. So
Okay.
it's really important that they
It's just-
reach out.
I kind of went off
I don't
the
know if
money
people know
topic.
that they can reach out to, survey and
Almost
certification and ask these questions and get some help. But it's very important that the Medicaid applications go in if they are not gonna be in a position to pay for the nursing home, because ultimately they need some source of payment for the services that they're receiving. If they're getting charged at self-pay, that can be very expensive if the family is agreeing to cover. And this happens when they run out of money, to your earlier point that you raised. in terms of,
Okay.
yeah, in terms of
Okay.
what happened when somebody spends down their money. While they're spending down, they could be getting applications in and be working on that, which is usually what happens.
Thank you very much. I think, going forward, it's really, I really do appreciate all the information, both in this report, and the charts that you just reviewed with us.
Yeah.
It's very helpful for us to have a clearer picture of what we know and more importantly, what we don't know. And that's important as we go forward. And I think that while, I know you probably know this, Jamie, but nursing facilities are the only place in state government that get automatic increases of any kind and have annual increases. And so, and I realize, that's sort of a narrow focus for you. But we have to have a broader focus. We have to have a broader focus that also recognizes the need for home and community-based services have all of the same kind of issues that, we talk about, that we've talked about this morning, in different ways, but all of the same kinds of issues. And having that balance between what sort of, I guess I'm cautioning about increasing the potential for automatic increases for nursing facilities until we have something that is more comparable on the other side of the equation, to ensure that community-based services right now, we were fortunate enough to at least get they have to have a review every 5 years, okay? Every 5 years. What would nursing homes do if their review was every 5 years? That's what we have for community-based services, and that was only after a long fight here in the legislature.
Full review, because there are interim reviews, that's.
I'm just saying, yeah, but rate increases are not proposed by anybody in the administration for these services, except for nursing facilities. And so we just have to be careful about the balancing of home and community-based services and skilled nursing services, recognizing we need both, all. Thank you again for all of the work that you put into this. It was very helpful. And sometimes when you're so good at providing information, that begets requests for more information, but
We appreciate it being highlighted, it's so important.
yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here in person, Commissioner. We appreciate your attention to this important issue. It's very good. Okay, folks, we're going to take a 20-minute break, 5 after 11. Okay,
What do we have at 11?
committee discussion.
Okay.
We're going to, yes, we'll be back here, and be looking for, updates for people who have, things happening down in the Senate. So, if you have a bill, that's downstairs, and you have, had some activity there, report back to the committee about what's happening on those bills. And then be interested to see what people's reactions are to the information that we just talked about, for, almost 2 hours. So I think